Cruise news time, and we've got some heavy stories coming at you today. We have the story coming out of Greece of a late passenger passing away after being pushed off of a ship by a crew member. We also have an update on the missing Carnival cruise passenger, the passenger missing from the Carnival Conquest. And well, we have a new hurricane disrupting cruises. Hurricane Lee already making an impact. Cruise news and my views. Let's talk about it. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to La Lido Loca. I am your host Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views for your face for a Friday, September the 8th, 2023. Happy weekend, everybody. Yeah, the stories today, not that uplifting. So let's process through them. First story I want to talk about is the story coming out of Greece, where we have a late passenger trying to board a ferry after the lines have already been released. So the scenario is this: the engines are running, the lines have been released, and the ferry is ready to pull away from the dock when this late passenger jumps on the ramp of the ferry, and he is immediately met by two crew members who escort him off of the ramp onto the dock. And then as the ferry continues to pull away, he jumps back onto the ramp. Again, he is met by a crew member, and that crew member pushes him off the ramp. And at the time that the crew member pushes him off the ramp, the ferry has moved away from the dock, so he pushes him directly into the water. The man is caught up in the churn of the engines of that ship, and he is found unconscious in the harbor, and later he passes away. I've seen the video of this. It's fairly horrific to see. The guy is there at one moment and then he's gone. And remarkably, the ferry doesn't stop. The crew member doesn't do anything to try to help the man. Nothing at all happens, as if the event did not happen. Of course, it was all caught on video, and pretty quickly the ferry was told not to proceed any further out into the water. They were told to return to the dock, and unsurprisingly, the crew member that pushed the passenger in the water is now facing charges, and the other two crew members that were on the ramp also facing charges. The captain has been cited for violation of regulations, and a couple members of the top leadership of the port there have resigned under the scrutiny of this event. Now, this did not happen on a cruise ship, and normally the way that we board a cruise ship is different than this ramp scenario, but I do think there is something that we can learn from it. The problem is, we get so used to something that it doesn't seem dangerous anymore. I don't know how many times that person had taken the ferry, but hopping on the ferry was probably a very normal activity for them. And unfortunately, when we do something over and over, sometimes we can forget the inherent risk of the activity. Certainly not the man's fault that the crew member lost his cool and pushed him into the sea. But man, it's a reminder that this activity that we partake in does have some risk to it, and that we have to keep our wits about us when it comes to things as simple as embarking and disembarking a ship. It's just so senseless and so tragic. It's going to be interesting to see what happens to those crew members. I'll continue to follow it and pass any updates along to you. Now let's talk about Hurricane Lee. Did you realize we're in the middle of hurricane season? New week, new hurricane, Hurricane Lee. And this storm is massive, already a Category 4 out there in the Atlantic Ocean, and it's making its way toward the Caribbean islands and making its way toward the east coast of the United States. Most of the models have this storm shifting north off the coast of the United States, but there is enough impact of the storm already that we have a couple cruise ships changing their itineraries. Guests booked on this weekend's sailing of the Carnival Venezia were notified that their Eastern Caribbean cruise would be modified. The ship was originally scheduled to go to St. Thomas, San Juan, and Grand Turk, but instead it will be going to Nassau, to Freeport, and to Princess Key. Another cruise ship impacted by Hurricane Lee is the Disney Fantasy. Guests booked on the September 9th sailing of the Disney Fantasy were supposed to go to Bermuda, but instead the whole trip has been changed. Instead of going east out into the Atlantic, the Disney Fantasy will now make its way toward the Western Caribbean with stops in Cozumel, Grand Cayman, and a stop in the Bahamas at Disney's private island Castaway Cay. It seems like us cruisers are given this reminder every year by Mother Nature that if you choose to cruise during the height of hurricane season, at least down here in the Atlantic and in the Gulf of Mexico, and sometimes on the Pacific, be prepared to not go on the cruise that you booked and paid for. And as disappointing as it seems, remember it's better to be safe on the seas than sorry. And I can imagine that on both of these cruise ships, there will be a handful of cruisers that are completely upset about their itinerary change. That is the risk you take when you take a cruise during hurricane season, which is like half the year. So yeah, there you go. Now, I do have an update about the missing Carnival cruise passenger, Kevin McGrath, missing from the Carnival Conquest. It's been a wild tale. Check out the previous videos if you want the full recap. But the update today, not a great update for the family. The update is that the search for Kevin has been called off. And so family members and the rest of us following it are just left with this big question mark. What happened to Kevin McGrath? Boom, that's your cruise news. And man, I wish there was some better cruise news today. There's free ice cream on the Lido. How about that? Free ice cream. Thanks for watching the show. If you found some value in it today, please hit that like button. If you like staying up to date with the cruise news, hit the subscribe button. This is Tony for La Lido Loca. And until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye. Cruise news.